I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I hate the Atlanta Braves, and we're going to talk about it on today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing, justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. My recommendation: never buy tickets to see the New York Mets in Atlanta. I don't even know if I should spend time discussing what happened on Thursday night, because if you're a Mets fan that saw it, do you want to relive it? If you're a Mets fan that didn't see it, do you really want to know? Last year, a hurricane was barreling through, and we thought it was going to hit Atlanta at the end of the season. My dad and I had tickets to go to each of those games in Atlanta. The hurricane ended up hitting Florida more than Atlanta, tore up a lot of the highway that was right across our route. It ended up being great weather for a series, Mets versus Braves, to decide the National League East, two teams that would finish with 101 wins. We decided not to make that drive up and deal with whatever was going to be on the roads for us, and it just didn't feel like a smart trip to take. Okay, and it became the wisest thing we ever did, because we didn't have to be there to see a gut-wrenching sweep where every good pitcher the Mets threw out there to face the Braves, if I remember correctly, I think Scherzer, DeGrom, Bassett all pitched in that series, the same rotation that they would roll out for the wild card round. They all pitched, and the Mets lost all three games. Now, you go into this series, and you have Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander start two of these three games. And the Mets have a 3-run lead in each of the three games for the first time in franchise history. They had a lead like that in each game, and they got swept. It's never happened before. They've never been this bad before. They've never blown that many consecutive games to a team before in one series. It's brutal. I hate the Atlanta Braves. Hate them. Have hated them my whole life. Continue to hate them. I hate all their players, from the Chipper Jones days to what we're seeing now. I hate Acuna. I hate Albies because he's not even that good. Come at me, Braves fans. He's not that good. Most overrated second baseman, but hit some home runs. It's sure hit a big one to destroy Mets fans' hopes and dreams on a Thursday night, walking things off. I mean, you already lost when Tommy Hunter is pitching in an extra inning game because you had nothing left to throw. Tommy Hunter comes in with his 6 ERA. He nearly gets you through it. He gets you to 2 outs. You're so close. You just needed that rocket to be hit anywhere but in the seats, and it was hitting the seats. I hate all of them. I hate that Travis d'Arnaud hits a 2-run homer to get the Braves within one late, and the fact that he has destroyed the Mets ever since leaving. I hate that they can pick up a guy like Orlando Arcia off the scrap heap, and he can turn into a great shortstop out of thin air. How they went from Dansby Swanson, a first overall pick that was supposed to be good and became good at the end of that their team control of him. He has a great season. They let him walk. It was supposed to be Vaughn Grisham, who you would have been scared about as another former top prospect. And Orlando Arcia wins the job, and he's the guy that hits the tying home run in the 9th inning. brutal. I hate their fans. I hate that ballpark, how it plays so freaking small. It's great when Francisco Alvarez is leaving the yard twice in the game. But when you can't hold a lead late, the Braves own the Mets right now. They just do. They swept them last year to win the division. Luckily, they got beat in the playoffs because they spent too much energy and attention on the division and the Mets, and they ran out of gas against the Phillies. But certainly seems like they're going to win their sixth straight division title this year, unless the Marlins can catch them, I guess. That type of a loss is the one where you just have to laugh. You either laugh or cry. And what are you going to do? I can't believe how bad Justin Verlander pitched. The fact that I was happy that he got a big strikeout to get out of the third inning. And that's all you got out of him. It was all right. They had to go to the bullpen to cover a whole game. And they just ran out of arms. And David Robertson gives up a home run on his, whatever it was, his 25th some odd pitch. I don't know. He was in the 20s for sure. So many guys had to continue over where usually you'd pitch one of your relievers, you'd have a guy like Brooks Raley or Drew Smith get the big out to get out of an inning, you could pass the baton. But those guys are like, no, we got to squeeze one more out of you. And then that one more out seemed to get the next pitcher into trouble. That was a horrendous baseball game. That's the type of game that the Mets had last year against the Phillies, where they were down 7-1 and they come back. That's the type of game the Braves got to enjoy. And they got to enjoy 3 of them in one series against this team. Do I want to get into some of the nuances of that game? Some of the positives you can take from the offense, but I don't even think it's worth it, man. I don't even think it's worth it to spend any more time on it. You've lost 6 in a row. I don't even know how many games out you are at this point. I'll check and I'll let you know in the next segment. And you got to go play a pretty good Pirates team this weekend on top of it all. Try to break out of it. I'm speechless. So I think the only thing that we can do here is go to break and let me regroup. I'll tell you. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. If you've ever been in the situation where you're stressing out over trying to find tickets to the game, Gametime is the place to go because you can get killer deals on last-minute tickets. If you want to go to the game, this is where you should go. If you want to go to the concert, the comedy show, if you want to go to a theater near you, Gametime has it all with their best price guarantee. So you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you're going to have. The Gametime guarantee means you're always going to find the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps, you're all set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snap tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. After getting swept by the Atlanta Braves, you look at this National League East division. Braves are sitting at 38-24. Marlins are at 35-28, 3.5 back. Phillies 30-32, now half a game up on the Mets despite getting swept a week ago. And the Mets are sitting at 30-33. They are 8.5 back in this division. Luckily, there's still a wild card. You still have a chance to be a playoff team. But it felt like the Braves just ended the Mets' chance at the division again, the same way they did the last time these two teams met in that ballpark. And this time, we're in June. But currently, can you see the Mets running down that Braves team? Running down an 8.5 deficit, 8.5 game deficit in the division. Here's the good thing. Had some guys that had big days. And maybe that carries over for you offensively. Maybe the fact that you're not playing the Braves and maybe that's the type of loss that's so bad that there's only one way to go and it's up from there. Maybe. Brandon Nimmo had a grand slam in this one. Francisco Alvarez had his second multi-home run game of the season. This kid is a superstar, and I love that they're going to DH him now. So days when you're going to Narvaez behind the dish, all right, you can DH Alvarez. They should go to that. You don't always have to prepare for a disaster, okay? If something were to happen during a game, you could lose your DH if you had to, and you can put Alvarez behind the dish if you had to. Otherwise, just don't put it out there like something's going to happen. Yes, maybe in an ideal world, the Mets would have kept Gary Sanchez, who's somehow been good for the Padres, and realized that they were going to cut Tomas Nido 2 days later, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about that. You had a guy that you wanted to see in Sanchez. You saw him for half a second. And then when Nido came back, you said, all right, we're going to bring Nido back just to get rid of Nido when Narvaez comes back. Not great roster management by this front office. At that point, you might as well have just DFA'd Nido when he was ready, kept Sanchez for a little bit longer, and who knows, maybe you would have thought, oh, actually, he's pretty decent. Doesn't matter. It's crying over spilled milk that probably shouldn't be worried about because I'm sure Sanchez will go downhill for the Padres at some point. And watching him catch is something I never wanted to see again. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But you got two catchers that look pretty good. I mean, granted, there was an opportunity in the ninth inning. We had the bases loaded, 1 out, and Narvaez came up, and he couldn't put the ball in play to give you a run. That was brutal. But overall, I've liked the way he's looked offensively a lot more than Tomas Nido, and defensively, he's great. So I think the Mets have their catcher situation figured out. That's one thing they got. In this game, Jeff McNeil got a couple hits, but he struck out 3 times. Lindor was 2 for 4 with a walk. Beatty 2 for 4. He seems to be coming out of it with a walk and an RBI. Starling Marte 3 for 5, 2 runs scored, RBI. Tommy Pham 1 for 4, drove in a run, drew a walk, 2 strikeouts. Mark Vientos 0 for 5. One guy in the lap didn't get a hit. What I would say to that is keep rolling him out there. It's your fault that you didn't play him, that you got him cold. I hope that they maybe give him a chance here, but likely he goes 0 for 5 and they're going to park him right back on the bench where, he might struggle further. At this point, you might have to option him. And you might have to play Tommy Pham every day and play Mark Canha every day for a little bit. I know there's some that would say call up Ronnie Mauricio, play him at second base, move Jeff McNeil to left. I don't necessarily want to take playing time away from Tommy Pham or Mark Canha right now. So to me, the bigger thing is those guys should be playing. Ideally, you give Vientos some run. But if you're not going to give him run here, at least option a AAA so his back can get hot again. So when you maybe decide to give him run, he's locked in. Because that's a guy that, to me, just looks like he's no longer comfortable because he hasn't been seeing at-bats for 2 weeks now. Consistent at-bats, at least. But, look, this game, the Mets had to use 6 relievers because Justin Verlander couldn't make it past the 3rd inning. If you want to pinpoint one reason why you lost this game, it's Verlander giving up 7 hits and 4 walks. And this is second year coming off Tommy John. And he was great in that first year coming off TJ. Do you remember Matt Harvey in his second year after Tommy John? I'm not saying Verlander's going to be that because I certainly was able to see him make a great pitch to the Braves, the bases loaded situation where it's like, okay, it's still in there. But that's going to be something to monitor. Scherzer had a bad start against the Braves too, but it's also this Braves team is really good. You just have to credit them for being an awesome team. Can the Mets still be a team that gets hot at the right time, that sneaks into the playoffs as a wildcard team that makes a run? We just saw a Phillies team that was far less talented do it last year. Now, they had more horses in that rotation that they could count on. But again, if the Mets get hot at the right time and Verlander and Scherzer look like the guys that they've been throughout their careers and Kodai Senga is good, you never know. It's not time to give up on the season. This team was in a very similar spot a month ago, clawed their way out of it, looked good for a minute. There's a chance they can claw out of this thing again, and they could get right back into the hunt, whether it's the division, but more likely the wild card hunt, and still put together a good summer where there's a lot of Mets baseball to enjoy. But the last, not even just 3 nights, because it was over the weekend too, the last week, going from the emotional high of sweeping the Phillies to getting swept by the Braves a week later and the 6 losses in between, it's all too familiar for Mets fans who have been watching this same thing over and over again for years now. But maybe against the Pittsburgh Pirates this weekend, things can change. That's the beautiful thing about baseball. There's always tomorrow. I'll discuss that more in just a minute. Before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. If you want some comfortable shorts that you can take out on the golf course, you can take out to dinner at night, you can wear around the house, Bird Dogs are there for you. There's so many different styles to choose from, but the main thing is always the comfort. These shorts are comfortable as well as versatile. They look great. I love my Bird Dogs. You will too. If you want to try Bird Dogs today, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB and use the promo code LockedOnMLB. They're going to throw in a free gift of a Yeti-style Bird Dogs tumbler with every order. Again, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. Use the promo code LockedOnMLB and get that free gift of a Yeti-style Bird Dogs tumbler. Go to birddogs.com today. The New York Mets play the Pittsburgh Pirates 7:05 Eastern Time Friday night. If you want to catch every pitch from the Mets' hometown broadcast, you can do so with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Now, here you go. Mets Pirates, PNC Park. Pirates are good this year, 32-29. They were the best team in baseball coming out of April. They went through a massive skid and then have now come back right around out of it. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They are 16-15 at home, 16-14 away this year. They got a lineup that consists of a bunch of guys that you'd be surprised are this good. Brian Reynolds with the long-term extension. He's there for 8 years now, I believe, and is playing alongside the guy that they once traded to get Reynolds, which is Andrew McCutchen. So McCutchen is back. You remember the Mets showed a lot of interest in McCutchen this offseason. He decided to go and what we all thought was retire in Pittsburgh, have one last swan song. And he's been great this year. And they've been good in the lineup, sneaky good. Jack Sawinski, he's been a really good power hitter for them, had some really nice numbers. Connor Joe, same thing. All those guys I've mentioned, really good plate discipline. So you're going to see them work deep counts, not strike out too much and walk plenty. So it's going to be difficult for these match pitchers. Look at the matchups. Tyler McGill going up against Rich Hill. We all remember Rich Hill. He pitched for the Mets in 2021. This year, he's got a 4.41 ERA, right there in line with McGill at a 4.40 ERA. But guess who's pacing who in strikeouts? Rich Hill's got 61 to McGill's 48. How about that? The old veteran. How old is Rich Hill now? Got to be what? I'm going to guess 40, at least 43, 44, I guess, on Rich Hill. He's 43. He's 43. When's he turn 44? Am I close? Is it happening? It already happened. March 11th. Happy belated to Rich Hill. 43 years old, still doing it. Left-handed pitcher. I probably should have mentioned at some point. There's still kind of a scary situation developing with Pete Alonso in this wrist. He got flown to New York to check out that wrist further. Originally, they said it was a bruise. X-rays were negative. He got a CT scan, and they're sending him out to New York for further imaging. That could be disaster for this Mets team. I mean, suddenly what? Mark Vientos is your starting first baseman, and you got Vogelbach. Everyone gets to play then, right? Then Vogelbach gets the DH, and Vientos playing first. Hopefully that thing is just a bruise, and you get Pete back in short order because I don't know how this team survives with that. I mean, unless this is one of those situations where something that drastic for some reason, it's kind of like how the Phillies somehow played better without Bryce Harper last year. And then he came back and they went on that run. Maybe the Mets have some similar crazy arc in them, but I certainly don't hope that that is the case. Anyway, you don't have, I would doubt that Alonso is going to be in the lineup against Rich Hill. So I imagine your righty lineup with maybe Vientos starting at first again. One of Canna or Pham DHing. Maybe Canna plays first. I think that they probably, despite the fact that Vientos, his best position is first, I still think they probably would like Canna's defense over him more. It's just a more athletic player. So maybe it's Canna at first, Vientos at DH, Pham in left, and then your regulars around the diamond otherwise, with maybe Alvarez catching, because obviously they're not going to play Narvaez against a lefty. That's probably what we're looking at here. And who knows? Maybe this is just one of those things where you just put up 10 runs against the Braves. You scored runs in every single game against a good team. And now you go to Pittsburgh and you beat up on them. That's what you hope for. Game 2. That's going to be at 4:05 Eastern time. Kodai Senga versus Johan Oviedo. Senga has not been good on the road this year, but he was bad as the last time out. I'm trying to think when he started. I believe he got an extra day this time around. Let me check on that to make sure, because now that's one thing I'll be certainly paying attention to moving forward. So he started on the 4th, so 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Yeah, he's going to be on 5 days rest. So Senga should be good to go. Tough ballpark to pitch in, though. So we'll see how he holds up on the road this time. I don't know if that's enough of a trend at this point of the season that we say that's definitely the case. He's always going to be bad on the road, but that has been what's happened. So we'll see where things go there. And then, fortunately, Sunday, you got to face the ace of the Pirates, Mitch Keller, who's been nasty this year. Granted, the Mets just put up a bunch of runs against Spencer Strider, so you never know. But he has a 3.60 ERA, and he's got 94 strikeouts in 80 innings pitched, a 1.16 whip. He's been awesome out there. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Carlos Carrasco in his 5.94 ERA. But even though Carrasco, the end of that start against the Braves, lost it, he still was pretty good through 5. So, maybe Carrasco will continue a good stretch of pitching. I've still liked what I've seen from him lately. And look, even though this Pirates team is 32-29, it's not the Braves you just faced. It's definitely not a team that good. So it's your chance to get right a little bit, because the last thing you want is to carry this over. You have a day off on Monday, and then you got to return home to Citi Field with a bunch of Yankees fans there for a Subway Series and deal with all that. You want to get right this weekend. This is the time to do it. Hate to say it, though. I just don't know if this is the team to do it. My belief in the Mets has to hold true, but when you watch the baseball we've seen over the last week, it gets a little bit harder to, right? So we'll see. That's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets, this week on Locked On Mets, unless something awesome happens on Friday and I'm inspired to record a bonus episode. You'll see me on Monday for all you everydayers. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show, Locked On Mets. If you want to catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast tonight, you can do so with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search Mets.